being here. So I don't think I'm breaking any news today when I say that the U.S. Congress has some serious, serious problems with how it operates. The institution is broken. There's a lot of reasons for that. And, we look and see different things that we don't like about it, particularly on an individual basis, and that's great to discuss. But, this is part of a larger issue that has really caused our constitutional system to be eroded the way the Founding Fathers intended. When they created, and we're coming up, this is the year of America 250, 2026. Oh, we're doing so much stuff in Florida. I mean, I put George Washington in the state capitol building, just beautiful statue of Washington. I got Ben Franklin in Franklin County, right by the courthouse. We dropped a Thomas Jefferson statue in Jefferson County. I can get these on discount because the liberal states are taking them down. So it's like, it's a buyer's market if you like the Founding Fathers. So we're doing, we have Hamilton and Hamilton County coming soon, Madison and Madison County coming soon, Monroe down in the Florida Keys and Monroe County coming soon. But then we're also going to do things to honor people that have really exemplified those founding ideals. And so I've got a Lincoln statue coming. We're going to do that. I have Calvin Coolidge we're going to do, one of my favorites. And we're on and on it goes. So we're doing all this stuff. So this is a great year to talk about what it means to be an American, how did this country get founded, what are the ideals and everything like that. But one of the things that the Founding Fathers, when they won the Revolution, they had all these state governments, and these legislatures were like ultra powerful, and they created a constitution, part of it to checks and balances, separation of powers. But they said even with that, legislatures are the most powerful in a Republican system of government. Why? Because you control the power of the purse. So you talk about there's fraud in Minnesota with the Somali. First of all, people have known about that for like a decade, because when I was in Congress, and I've recovered from that experience, but I was there, I remember the Minnesota Republicans talking about it then. In fact, I did a trip out there to do, because we were investigating domestic terrorism, and you had so this is like something that's been well. But here's the thing: anytime you see the government doing anything you don't want, the easiest remedy is to go to the Congress and have them simply take the funding away. Because if they don't have funding, then they can't do any of this stuff. So you don't like the abuse of IRS agents, defund. You don't like some of the other stuff that's done in some of the bureaucracy, defund. You have the ability to do that. And so Madison said that the power of the purse is the most effectual weapon that you can wield in Republican government. And, it doesn't even matter. We wouldn't even be talking about a permanent bureaucracy if Congress wielded the power of the purse. And so what's happened over the years is they have given away so much of their authority to the bureaucracy. They don't really legislate funding anymore. They just do continuing resolutions. That's just government on autopilot. You're not reforming anything if you're doing continuing resolution. You reform things by passing an actual bill that takes away funding from the bad things and then funds the good things. And so they've totally given up their number one weapon, which is the power of the purse. And then they've also delegated a lot of lawmaking authority to the bureaucrats. I remember when I was a Congress, the people that would come to see me, they weren't talking about anything I was voting on. They're talking about these agencies issuing rules. Nobody knows who these bureaucrats are, and then the rules come down, and then they got to deal with it, and there's no accountability. But, a lot of these congressmen have recognized, make the agencies do things that's going to piss people off, right? Like they could just give it to there, and then they get reelected, and that's kind of how it is. So there's been a lot of things that have led to this, but I think ultimately, you do have an institution that just doesn't do what the Founding Fathers envisioned. It's really distorted government, particularly on the spending side, particularly with having, a big administrative state. And there's a lot of things that have gone in that. So, I've been a big supporter in a lot of different reforms. I'm leading the effort around the country for the states to certify a constitutional amendment for term limits for members of Congress. We've got 12. Florida's one. We've got 12. We're probably going to get a half a dozen others this year. And I'll tell you, once people see that this is possible, it's going to get momentum. I think people want term limits, but they say, well, Congress will never do it. Well, you don't really need Congress to do it if the states do it, and we have that mechanism to do as well. So as that gets momentum, I think people are going to be really excited that that's the part of it. But part of the reason I believe in term limits is because I think Congress doesn't use its authority because the path of least resistance to getting reelected is just kind of autopilot, right? You know, if you actually have some of these fights, you know, people could get upset about it, and maybe you don't get reelected. I'd rather do the right thing than worrying about that, but that's just not how most people think. So I do think that would be something, you go, you know, have a limited period of time, get things done, and then leave a legacy. And I think it works better in our legislature, quite frankly, you know, to have it. People will point out, oh, it's not perfect. Of course it's not. It's better than what we have now, right? That's it, and I think it would help. So that's been something of it. The other thing I'm helping to do around the country is requiring that Congress balance the budget, just like the state of Florida has to balance the budget. We have surpluses, so it's not as big a deal for us. Pretty easy. In fact, when I became governor, our rainy day fund, so we've almost quadrupled the rainy day fund just since I've been governor in 7-year period. We've paid down, if you look at Florida, 180 years plus as a state, all the debt that has been accumulated, we've paid off half of it just in my tenure as governor. So don't tell me this stuff can't be done. It can be done. We've eliminated taxes at the state level. I don't have any more taxes to cut at the state level. That's why I'm trying to do the property tax for local to help you guys out with that. You know, in 2019, my first local governments in Florida brought in $32 billion in revenue from property tax. Today, they're bringing in over $56 billion. Now, you look, we've had population growth, we've had inflation. I'm not saying that it wouldn't go up more than 32 just naturally with all those things, but it wouldn't go to 56. And so the question is, you know, how is that money being used? And would you rather have that returned to you as a homeowner rather than continuing to feel the growth? Because the reality is, whether you like or not, you cannot have 6 or 7 years where you're almost doubling the amount of revenue that's going in. That is not going to ultimately work in the long term. So we are working on that. But a balanced budget requirement, we have 28 states. We need 34 to trigger it. So we've got 28. We think we're going to get a few more this year, and to be able to do that. So I've been a big supporter of that as well. I also work with our legislature to certify another amendment that I think would be really good. We don't have as much support nationally just because I think people don't know what's out there. But we've proposed the 28th Amendment that would simply say this: Congress shall make no law respecting the citizens of the United States that does not also apply to members of Congress themselves. I mean, wouldn't that be a good one to do? So, which brings me to the subject today, because I think what Congresswoman Luna in Washington is really leading the effort there, and we're limited on how we can affect this particular issue, but we are going to affect it, and we're going to propose something, and we're going to do it. But, you know, you notice this thing, and it's really odd. You'll have people get elected to Congress having never shown any investment acumen ever in their life, and then all of a sudden they become Warren Buffett on steroids. They're putting some of the biggest hedge funds in America to shame with these stock trades that have these real suspicious timing. Because, you know, look, if you buy a stock and it goes up 400% like in like a month, that's like a once-in-a-lifetime investment thing. And yet these guys seem to be doing this quite frequently. And they have access to certain information, I believe, that is helping to fuel that. So if you look at Nancy Pelosi's portfolio, you know, she has absolutely shattered you know, a lot of these investment records. But it's not just that. There's a whole bunch, and it's on both sides of the aisle. So what Anna Paulina Luna has done is said, we got to stop the insider trade. It's basically a different form of insider trading. Like, there's certain insider trading on Wall Street, and that does apply to Congress, but they're privy to different types of that's not really contemplated under existing laws. So what it should, and what I did, so, you know, I was there for 3 terms. The day I got in, I stopped doing stocks. So I've never done a stock trade since I've been in elected office. And my reason was, why would I want to be in a situation where, like, I take some action and then someday someone will say, oh, well, that's because, you know, you own Microsoft or you own this or that. I was like, no. So it's like 401k, all that stuff. And that's not, but this, I'm going to buy here, sell here. When you're in office, people, I think it's bad. So that was the decision I made. I'm poorer for it, but you know what? You only live once, and I'd rather do what's right and let the chips fall where they may. Other people make different decisions, and you see really dramatic shifts. And I think Pelosi's worth hundreds of millions of dollars now, having been in Congress for 40 years or what. Oh, by the way, term limits would have solved that problem too. So just be honest. So you have that. So her bill really fixes this problem. And here's the thing. I think it hurts Congress. I think it's short-sighted to allow this because people already have a low estimation, and then they see this stuff, and then they're like, oh, yeah, you're on this committee, there's this issue, you do this stock, and then it goes up 200% the next week, or you dump this stock and it tanks, the next 2 weeks later. Those, when you invest, that's just not typical. Because honestly, I would think that, our state pension fund, we have one of the biggest pension funds. Pelosi, when she leaves Congress, I told our head, Chris Spencer, maybe get her to run the pension fund. I'd love those returns for Florida. You guys would, anyone who's in the pension, you do really well. So that's the thing. So she's pushing on that. I think it's a no-brainer. I think every single member of Florida's congressional delegation should be supporting Congresswoman Luna's bill to end this charade with this insider congressional stock trading. And it's the right thing to do. Now, from the state level, we're active. It's like, okay, well, maybe we can just do it for our federal representatives. The reality is there's a lot of Supreme Court precedent that would not let us do that. It really has to be done federally, because I would have been supportive of just saying you're a congressperson or a senator from Florida, and there, then you do. And it's not the same as the state legislator, because our state legislatures, they're part-time. Some of them are investment. They have investment businesses, and they're not privy to the same type of information. So it's not at all the same what goes on in at least Florida state legislature compared to what goes on in Washington with respect to stock trading. But so it's like, how can we do it? So what we're going to propose, I have some members of the legislature that I think thought of this. I don't think I thought of it. And so hopefully they'll do it. But what we're going to do, and then we are allowed to do this, is when they qualify for federal office, there's going to be a checkbox. Do you intend to trade individual stocks while you're in Congress? Yes or no? And so you as a voter will know what they said. And if they say no, well, when they run for re-election, they have to answer a second question. Did you, in fact, trade any stocks individually while you were in Congress? And if they say yes, then that means they broke their word to you and honestly lied on those forms. And so that's what we're going to do. It's within our power to do that. We wouldn't be able to do anything more than that without running afoul of major Supreme Court precedent. Because the Florida voters actually voted for term limits for Congress in the early 90s. There was a big push to term limit Congress state by state. So our congressmen would have been term limited, our U.S. senators would have been term limited. U.S. Supreme Court in a case called Thornton, 5-4, said that was not allowed. Now, the dissent was written by Justice Clarence Thomas, and usually Thomas is right, and he was right on this one too. But the reality is that is where we are. So I don't think it would end up being something that we would be able to sustain right now. So hopefully they get momentum this year to finally get this done. I know she's going to talk about that. And if they do, then to me, I think it solves the problems. But in the meantime, what we're doing here in Florida, that's going to help you as a voter to be able to ferret out. And my thing is like you get there, you should be able, you want to get there to do something good for people, not get there to be something and to be able to kind of capitalize off the swamp up there. So this is a good reform. I think it's very thoughtful. It's got my support. But man, we should at least have all the Florida federal representatives lining up behind this. Look, California, some of these, I don't know how they think it. The water's different there. I mean, it's just really ridiculous. I always get a chuckle. I'll meet people, I wish you got to come to run for governor of California. I was like, I couldn't get elected. Are you kidding me? Like, it's a different mindset in terms of what goes on. But here, I have no doubt that this reform is what the voters of this state would like to see. And to tell you